Hey, so my name is Jacko, and today we're going to be doing a comprehensive rogue guide for setting up your rogue for passing success in Burning Crusade. So the first thing you need to do is just set up your rogue correctly, which means the correct enchants, the correct gems, and the correct talents. So starting with gems, each stat on a rogue is worth like so much DPS, with expertise being worth the highest, then hit, then haste, then agility, then crit. So you want to be gemming up hit. You can't gem expertise, so you want to gem hit on everything you can when you can. The only important thing here is to not go over the hit cap at 315. So you want to stay below 315 and get as much hit as possible. You can gem differently for trash damage, but it's far better to just gem for boss damage. And then, like, let's say I'm doing trash, I could swap out the Arcanite Steam Pistol, right, for the Armani Longbow and drop a lot of hit. Then I'm optimal for the trash and I'm optimal for the boss. So that's definitely the best way to go about your gemming. So next up, we'll just quickly cover the rogue's talents. Now, there are four different talent specializations that you could really go between. The first is the basic one. This is just combat swords, so you have a sword in your offhand and your main hand. Standard. This is when you're still using deadly poison, and we'll cover what happens when you don't in a minute. The second is if you don't have a sword main hand, you can chuck these 5 points into fist or mace, depending on which type of main hand you have. Maybe you've just been very unlucky with a main hand sword, or whatever the case may be. You go with this talent specialization. The third is when the fight length is very short and you are getting like double bloodlust. Deadly poison is no longer really a DPS increase over using a sharpening stone, so you could just forego these 2 points, have them into improved vis. And finally, for Sunwell, there's only one boss that benefits from murder, so if you want to pass the other bosses, you can get slightly more damage by just putting that 1 point in murder into improved vis. Finally, just to touch up on before we move into actual gameplay, this is the Simonize Rogue Sim sheet. It's extremely useful, very well done, it's really intuitive, very easy to get the hang of, and it will give you the most accurate representation of what a DPS increase is for your rogue. So you can put in like whatever raid buffs you might have. For example, like I often don't have a hunter in my group, but I have the paladin. So I have this set up for me. My fight length is normally around 130 in Hajal, the demons, the 6800 armor, right? Like you can just set it to your exact rogue, and then you can see what the DPS point per point is for your character. So definitely something to get used to, and I'll put a link to that in the description. So before I get into the next section, I want to quickly give a massive thank you to Wherefore from the Rogue Discord for helping me out with all of this. It's been wonderful. He's set up for me this sheet and also his personal Python script for expose openers, which I won't share here, but maybe he'll share when he's finished. It's incredible. Anyway, so for your opener, it depends on a few things. Firstly, the raid DPS is extremely important, right? This is the DPS your raid gains from an expose at various different thresholds. So if you want to see how much DPS your raid's doing exactly, you want to go to Warcraft logs. This is our Asgalor from last night's raid. You want to type in ability.type equals 1. This will show you only physical damage, and you can see my raid with the Arms Warrior even dying is doing about 26,000 physical DPS. So probably if the Arms Warrior is alive the whole fight, it's probably 27, 28,000. So we can say we're around this mark, right? And everyone's got armor pen. So we're getting around 1,243 DPS from expose being up. So, going quickly over the rogue cooldowns and when to use them. This is using your cooldowns within the first 15 seconds of the fight, and implying the target immediately has 5 thunders. This is your DPS over a 30-second period, okay? So, first of all, this is your Watering Coil and your DST proccing in the first 15 seconds of the fight, and you're using your cooldowns right away with the 5 thunders. You're doing 4,044 DPS in the 30-second period. Secondly, the worst case scenario when you detach them, which is neither of your trinkets proc, and you use your 2 minutes after exposing, you lose about 50 DPS. Worst case scenario. And best case scenario, when both your trinkets proc after exposing, which is 50% for DST, WSC is a little less likely, you gain a small amount of DPS. So, yeah, it's roughly similar no matter how you do the opener. You can gain or lose DPS depending on like how lucky you are, but on average, you could lose a bit of damage on average. You could gain a bit of damage if you're lucky. DST's got a slightly inflated proc chance, a slightly deflated proc chance to what's shown here. So in reality, it's slightly more likely that it's about a middle ground. Okay. So the first opener I'll go over before I go over some of the more optimal openers is an opener I see many rogues do, which is 2 Sinister Strikes into Slice and Dice, into using all of their cooldowns, so Blade Flurry, their Haste Potion, and Adrenaline Rush, not using T, and then building the Expose, right? And after 40 iterations, I won't show his code because I'm sure Wherefore wants to show off at his own time, but after 40 iterations, it was 11.7 average time to expose. So the second opener here is the opener that I use typically, unless there's a trash mob, which is the one slice and dice into immediate AR as soon as you can, immediate T as soon as you can, and delaying your other cooldowns until after expose is up. This gives you 7.7 average seconds of time to expose, which I think the other one's 11.7. So you've got a 4 second increase in the time for doing the other opener. So if we go back to the other sheet, we can see your raid DPS. So for us, our raid DPS is in between here. It's probably 1,000 and a bit. So we're losing, 4 and a bit thousand damage from doing the 4,000, sorry, DPS, not damage, during the opener time for doing the other opener, assuming 5 Sunders are up. The less Sunders are up, this dramatically increases for every Sunder that's not applied. So you're gaining, well, the best case for the other opener was you were gaining like 40 DPS, 50 DPS, and the worst case for the other opener was you were losing like 20 DPS. So it's kind of like a iffy situation, but the benefit is you're gaining several thousand raid DPS for multiple seconds doing this opener. So it is a no-brainer to do this opener whenever you can. So here I obviously won't show you the entire Illidan kill, but I'll show you the traditional opener with the one slice and dice into the adrenaline rush as soon as possible, T as soon as possible, and expose as soon as possible, so you can see what it looks like in a realistic raid setting. So here against Illidan, you could save your 2 minutes if your raid's cleaving the ads. Our raid wasn't today, but if you are, you could save them. Get slightly more damage that way. But here, the one sinister, slice and dice, immediate AR, T as soon as possible, and get the expose up as soon as possible. So there's the expose up now, and then you can go into your cooldowns. Again, you could delay your cooldowns if you wanted to, but in this particular case I do not. So this opener is a delayed opener. So this is a boss where you're cleaving, and you need to use your cooldowns on cleave, but you still want to get exposed armor up on the target you're cleaving from. So in this opener we go for a 1-point slice and dice, and then we try and build the expose as quickly as possible without using any cooldowns to ensure that we can cleave from the expose. Now unfortunately for me, I have my trinkets proc early, so this is going to be like a moderate DPS loss, but you can't really do anything about it on a fight like this, because you have to cleave now, otherwise the moss will be dead. They will be dead before the ICDs come back up.
Oh, no, I got it.
So I go for an eviscerate, and I'm going to reload and expose. And then I get a few of my trinkets come back up, but yeah, maybe I could have used it here, but again, you don't super know how much cleave is going to go out, and you need to do it as early as possible. So then from there, now I'm back into a position where I can continue my normal rotation. Here I'll probably just rebuild an IEA. But now with the DST proc, maybe I could have gone for an earlier rupture. Because I risk overcapping on NG. And there I really should have vanished the last tick of the whirlwind to not take the damage from it, and then I could have stayed in, but I think I was a little worried about dying. But you see, like, my 2 minutes aren't back off cooldown yet, so I could have potentially delayed them, assigning a bit longer to try and get more trinket ICD with them, but I really wanted that armor debuff on the boss before I started cleaving. Especially because there's no Sunders on him. So I'll go for a slightly more advanced opener here, which you need a trash mob to do. So you need to get 5 combo points on a trash mob right before the boss. It works in all the bosses in Hijal except Archimond, and it works in half the bosses in BT pretty much. In some while I'm not certain yet, but we'll see. So you're going to get engaging on the boss with some amount of slice and dice. You need like preferably 5 to 6 seconds plus. And then there are 2 variants. There's the personal pass opener, which I'll show here, which is delaying all cooldowns until after expose. And then there's the raid benefit one, which is where you engage with slice up and you try and get up expose ASAP. So it's very simple. You just engage and you pop your sinisters until you can get the expose and use your T, and then you go to slice. Ideally, you don't want drum seized here. We do get it here in our raid, but you don't really want it here because my trinkets are on cooldown and my warglaives are on cooldown. But I still want to use my my other cooldowns within the drums window and just hope they come back up. So I'm using them. I could have probably delayed them another 2 or 3 seconds here, but that's a mistake on my part. And I play very risky here. You see, I get a parry as well, which means expose is going to drop for like 1 second or so, or maybe 2 seconds, which is pretty bad. You could definitely play this slightly more optimally. So there you go, the exposed drop. The rest of the fight, I play very risky as well, and here I try to time my vanish after an auto attack because I'm getting too much threat. And I'm going to go for a big rupture later too, and then try to kill the boss with an abyss before I need to refresh IEA. Sadly, our Arms Warrior gets Doom, so that's a decent DPS loss for the raid now. But yeah, here will be the last time I refresh Expose, and you're kind of just hoping the boss dies now at this point before you get another one in. And this is where I play really risky. I go for a Rupture at the end here, and then I try and refresh my Slice, and then I try and get an Abyss. So I'm just going to go for a 1 point Slice refresh here, because the boss is very low, and then try and build for the Eviscerate. And this is like the personal pass way to play the boss. Obviously, like you think it's going to be slightly more optimal, the drums could be slightly better, your Arms Warrior could not die with the Doom, but you know, there are only so many things you can control. And that's a decent Ascalor record for me. Now the next opener will be the other variant of this. This is the previous week, before I looted my glaives. This is getting the Expose up as fast as possible and having the Slice. So you see here, it's a Terran Gorfine, so you have a much longer Slice. I'll just mute this thing quickly so I'm not talking twice. I was reading the timer out for people without DBM. Anyway, so we go here, I use my energy, I use Adrenaline Rush as soon as I can, I use T as soon as I can, and I get the Expose up as fast as possible. So it's a really fast Expose, and then I go into all of my my cooldowns while I still have the Waterspring Coil and the DST up. And this is the highest possible raid benefit. This probably works out better for me as well, because I get it with my cooldowns quite nicely. But you know, the raid DPS here is really huge. We're tanking Terran Gorfine a little badly. We should really face him the other way around, so that he doesn't turn around to the raid all the time. But you know, that's not really in your control. So the rest of the fight, we'll see what I play here. I haven't rewatched this one yet. This was a pre-war glaive Terran. So I assume I'm going to refresh Slice here. Going to wait a little bit until my energy's a bit higher. Yep. And then I'll probably go for another Expose here. Again, I'm going to probably try and pull energy for this Expose, so I don't overcap, but I also don't want to do it too fast. There we go. And then here, I'd imagine I do something risky, but maybe I don't. We'll see. Got my second Sabotage coming off cooldown as well. Yeah, I should probably go for a Rupture into a 1 point. Yeah, I did. Rupture into 1 point Slice and just hope the boss dies. Yeah, that's probably the play here because he's quite low and Terran dies really, really fast. Looks like I probably overestimated how fast he'll die though. Maybe I'll have to get re-exposed in the 1 point Rupture, 1 point Slice, sorry, which I do. Yeah, and then for a 1 Bloodlust Terran without Warglaive, it's pretty good. I think it's like 3.2k, about that. Maybe slightly lower. This should be an Eviscerate, and then I don't get a Slice, but what can you do? Decent. Now, I'd like to finish off the video by again giving a massive thank you to Wherefore from the Rogue Discord. This couldn't have been possible without him. He did all of the math for me in this video and let me use his personal Python script, which allowed me to do the actual math behind the different Expose openers. So, a massive thank you to you, and I hope that whenever you're ready to publish your work on the Rogue Opener Python script, that it gets all the attention it deserves. And thanks everyone for watching.